Hello, everybody. Welcome to the LadyGirl podcast. If you are here for the first time, you are very much welcome. And please do us a favor, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And if you have been here or you are here the second time, third time, multiple times, you are also very much welcome. Thank you so much for the continued support. And we hope that you have already subscribed to our channel on YouTube. So I came across a passage that is very fascinating and that taught me about the pattern of prayer in ways that I've never really learned before. And I just thought I need to share this with you guys. So I want to talk about the pattern of prayer, and we'll be basing this from the book of Proverbs chapter 30. We'll be reading from verse 1 to verse 9. And it reads as follows. The sayings of Agur. The sayings of Agur, son of Jakeh, contain this message to Ithiel and Ukal. Verse 1. I am weary, O God. I am weary and worn out, O God. I am too stupid to be human, and I lack common sense. I have not mastered human wisdom, nor do I know the Holy One. Who but God goes up to heaven and comes back down? Who holds the wind in his fist? Who wraps up the ocean in his cloak? Who has created the whole wild world? What is his name and his son's name? Tell me if you know. Verse 5. Every word of God proves true. He is a shield to all who come to him for protection. Do not add to his words, or he may rebuke you and expose you as a liar. Verse 7. O God, I beg two favors from you. Let me have them before I die. First, help me never to tell a lie. Second, give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me just enough to satisfy my needs. For if I grow rich, I may deny you and say, who is the Lord? And if I am too poor, I may still and thus insult God's holy name. So what I want to talk about here is, like I said, the pattern of prayer. Before we get into the verses, I want us to focus on the topic of Proverbs chapter 30. It says, the sayings of Agur. The sayings of Agur, son of Jakeh, contain this message to Ithiel and Ukal. Okay, so I decided to research what is the meaning of the word Agur, because I think in the whole Bible, this is the only time where we get introduced to this guy, Agur. So when I did my research, I found that Agur means the gatherer of wise men. And he is known as the originator of the wisdom found in Proverbs chapter 30. And then the Bible also tells us that he is the son of Jakeh. And Jakeh or Jakeh means pious or carefully religious. Okay, so that's very important. Agur is the gatherer of wise men. And then the Bible tells us that he contains this message to Ithiel and Ukal. Right? So Ithiel and Ukal, when I also did my research on who they are, the research that I've gotten, I almost said the Bible, the research that I've gotten says that they were the students of Agur. So both of them were students of Agur. And it makes sense when we get the meaning of the word Agur as the gatherer of wise men. So him being the gatherer of wise men and Ithiel and Ukal being his students leads us to believe that actually Agur was a professor of wisdom or a teacher of wisdom. So he would teach these people wisdom. And so in Proverbs chapter 30, it tells us that he was saying these messages to Ithiel and Ukal. Now we don't know how many students he had, but the Bible does tell us of Ithiel and Ukal. Okay, so keep that in mind. He is the teacher of wisdom. So what is this teacher of wisdom saying? The first thing that he says, I am weary, O God. I am weary and worn out. I am too stupid to be human, and I lack common sense. I have not mastered human wisdom, nor do I know the Holy One. So, the first thing that really grabbed my mind in all of this is, okay, we have established that Agur is the teacher of wisdom. He has students whom he teaches wisdom. But when he writes this saying, he says in verse 2, I am too stupid to be human. I lack common sense and I have not mastered human wisdom. Which for me was a bit eyebrow raising. I was like, how is it possible that a teacher of wisdom can utter words and say that I am too stupid to be human and I have not mastered human wisdom, right? And this led me to the whole notion of the pattern of prayer. And the first thing with the pattern of prayer that we are gathering from Agur is that whenever you approach God in prayer, you must realize and recognize that you are an empty vessel. And the reason why you have to realize and recognize that you are an empty vessel is because you are giving God an opportunity to pour himself to you. There is something about approaching the presence of God that must humble you and make you realize that you are nothing and you are only made something because of God, right? That's first thing in the pattern of prayer. Whenever you approach God in prayer, recognize who you are. You are an empty vessel ready to be poured into by God. Okay, verse 4 and verse 5 leads us to the second step in the pattern of prayer, and that is proclaiming the divineness of God. Proclaiming the divineness of God, giving God the praise that he deserves. After Agur has realized who he is in the presence of God, an empty vessel, too stupid to be human, have not mastered human wisdom, giving God an opportunity to pour into him, the second thing that he does is he now gives God his praise. He says, who but God goes up to heaven and comes back down? So here he is trying to create a distinction between God and human beings, and he says, who has the ability to go up into heaven and come down like God? Okay, and then he says, who holds the wind in his fist? So he gives these proclamations to God, that who can hold the wind in his fist, who can wrap the ocean in his cloak. There is no one. In other words, he's trying to say that there is no one who has these abilities but God. So he is proclaiming, or he's giving God the glory and the honor that he deserves. And then in verse 5 he says, every word of God proves true. He is a shield to all who come to him for protection. Again, proclaiming the greatness and the goodness of God. And that is the second thing that we need to understand whenever we come into the pattern of prayer. That is, we must give God all due diligence, all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory. And then in verse 6, he says, do not add to his words, or he may rebuke you and expose you as a liar. So now, based on our limitations, based on Agur's limitations, which were mentioned in verse 1 to verse 3, and also based on the greatness of God that was mentioned in verse 4 and verse 5, Agur comes then to the conclusion that never be in a position where you add to the words of God. Why? Because you as a human being have not mastered human wisdom, and he as God goes up into heaven and comes down. He does things that no other human being can do. So you are in no position to add to the words of God. If you do that, what will he do? He will rebuke you and he will expose you as a liar. Then in verse 7 to verse 9, there then comes the petition that you can make to God. And he says, oh God, I beg two favors from you. Let me have them before I die. And then he says, first, help me to never tell a lie. And secondly, do not make me too rich, or do not make me poor. Give me exactly that which I need. And then he gives reasons why he is making this request, right? So we see the 4 steps in the pattern of prayer here. The first one is humble yourself. Whenever you approach God in prayer, recognize who you are, recognize who God is, and humble yourself. And the second thing is give God the glory and the honor that he deserves. Give God the glory and the honor that he deserves. Then the third thing is let God be. Do not add to his words. Do not subtract to his words. Do not try to be God. Let him be who he is. And then the fourth and last thing, once you have established all these things, then you can make your petition known to God. And that is the pattern of prayer that I have recognized from this passage. And I hope that even with you, it will help you in understanding your prayer. I think most of us, when we approach prayer, the first thing that we want to do is we just want to ask God, God, can you please help me with this? God, can you please help me with that? But I challenge you that as you proceed in your life and in your prayer life, most importantly, try what Agur has tried here. Try following this pattern of prayer that is humbling yourself, giving God his honor, recognizing his sovereignty, and then making your petition known to God. Let's see if this will not change the outcome or the effect of your prayer life. May the living God bless you, and I will see you next time.